the government used to commission believers to do artwork, right?
You're right.
Going all the way back. And obviously some of the greatest pieces of art in history are biblically and or faith-based. The church, they stopped engaging culture. They stopped engaging the arts. They stopped and they kind of gave it away. And then we sit back as believers and go, well, why is Hollywood doing this? And why is art that? And they're like, well, wait a minute. We're the ones that
you left.
Have to show up and just do what you can in that moment. And then do that the next day.
Wow.
And it all just compounds. I'm telling you, like, a lot of people think there's a secret or there's a sauce or whatever, but it's literally, as cliche as it sounds, it is consistency.
Wow.
Want to make sure when you try Bluebell for the first time or that it's what you expect, because it takes you somewhere. It takes you to grandma's house. It takes you to a memory of some kind, a celebration of some kind. And so we take that real serious.
A CEO of an 8-figure business, they're doing $75 million in revenue. They've got 350 staff. Each of those have 4 people in their family. That's roughly 1,200 people. So every time I sit down with the CEO, I think I'm talking to 1,200 people. That's sort of how I view it when I sit down, right? As the decisions you make and the implication of that runs down, it's affecting 1,200 individuals with every decision that you make. Yeah. Therefore, I'm really curious about your relationship with your spouse.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Faith Hustle podcast. My name is McQuinn. I'm your host. And as you can tell, I'm at my house. I am not in the studio. And that's because today's episode is a best of episode. We literally have compiled some of the best advice to Christian entrepreneurs on this episode. It's so good. So many gems and powerful nuggets to help your business grow and thrive God's way. Before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you 2 things. One, I got a promo coming up just in a second here for our next live event, Faith Hustle Night on April 4th. I would love to see you there. It's going to be an incredible night of networking with other Christian entrepreneurs and content creators. And secondly, if you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please consider subscribing. That would be such a blessing, and it will help you grow in your faith hustle. I can't wait for you to dive into this episode. But before that, see this quick promo for the next Faith Hustle Night and enjoy the episode. Everyone has been asking me, when is the next Faith Hustle Night? I've been hearing it nonstop. Well, I'm at the location of our next Faith Hustle Night, the Wax Space in Dallas. It's happening on April 4th at 7 p.m. right here. We're having our Faith Hustle Night. What's Faith Hustle Night? I'm glad you asked. It is a night of networking for Christian entrepreneurs and content creators who are wanting to do business God's way. And I'm telling you, you are in for a treat. We are doing a live podcast panel with some of my favorite people on the planet, Derek Ortiz, Kendra Tall, and Danielle Potang. We are doing a whole talk around content creation, how to make a living from it, and how to do it in a kingdom way. We also have an area for headshots, so you can get your professional headshots done. We'll have a live DJ. You'll get some nice artisan coffee. The only thing that's missing is you. So make sure to be here April 4th. Last time tickets went out fast. So make sure you get your ticket today before it sells out. April 4th, 7 p.m. I'll see you there. You went somewhere that I was going to get to anyways. Excellence. Because the thing that I do love about The Chosen is that, and again, I love all Christian films but we have had a reputation.
Oh, you do? You're being generous.
I was trying to be nice.
You're being generous now, but
I think I've always thought, we can be better. Like if you think of like all the artists of 1600, like that goes way back in time. Like they were painting these images of Christ. Like they are our standards of art. Right. And like when it comes to entertainment movies, we were taking L's. I'm sorry. I was we had the right heart. We had the right intentions. but like whether it was the quality of acting or production, and I come from a bit of a production background myself, I just be like, we can do better. And so when you have the mix of both, where it's like very intentional, great writing, great acting, and great production, it's like, I've heard it said once that like excellence is our evangelism in some ways it's our export to the world, because that's what they see. And
well, and it's something. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the government used to commission believers to do artwork, right?
You're right.
Going all the way back, and obviously some of the greatest pieces of art in history are biblically and/or faith-based, right? And so, but at some point along the way, and to be honest with you, it's probably within the last 150 years. My business partner Chris says this all the time, that the church, they stopped engaging culture. They stopped engaging the arts. They stopped, and they kind of gave it away. And then we sit back as believers and go, well, why is Hollywood doing this? And why is art that? And they're like, well, wait a minute. We're the ones that disengaged, right? Because even early Hollywood, right? The greatest films of the golden age of Hollywood were all biblically based things, like 10 Commandments, all these different things that were just, those were the standards for so long, winning all the Academy Awards, doing all these things. And then there was just this phase in the film industry specifically where we just disengaged, where we just got away. And then of course we get mad and like, oh, Hollywood this, and the movies are bad, and it's this and that. And I'm like, well, that's on us.
Right.
We're the ones that disengage, not Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, to be honest with you, and we're seeing this on our show, Hollywood will engage if they know there's numbers there, right?
Yes.
If they know those things, and that's fine. I don't care if that's what your reason is, because it's funny, because early on in The Chosen, we kind of begged Hollywood to go, oh, look what we're doing. And they're like, Jesus stuff, we're not really all that.
Yeah.
And now that it's become successful, they're like, hey, what are you doing over there? And we're like, no, we're good. We don't need your help now. But obviously we are engaging, and we are excited about that, to see that. But it is, for me personally, as a filmmaker, and it's something that God gave me very, very early on, like college days, of, man, I can't stand crappy Christian films. I just can't, and it was just something that God called me to do, is to bring excellence into that, right? And so for over 20 years now, that's been my goal, which is funny that we have to say, when somebody tells me like, oh, your show's pretty good, and I'm like, do you think my intention was to make something bad? But that's the mentality, to your point, of where Christian filmmaking. It's funny because I'd say probably 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, there was this huge shift in Christian music, right?
Yeah.
And you were seeing Christian bands tour with Ozzy Osbourne because they were just good musicians, right? Yeah. They were just good musicians. And so there was this huge shift. And I want to believe that there is a slowly but surely shift within the faith film space. Because again, you had things like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Lord of the Rings, obviously Passion of the Christ. You had some of these things starting to happen where all of us were kind of encouraged, but there still was this just kind of, oh, we're doing it for the Lord. And I'm like, and that's fine. And I'm not here to, like, if God's called you to do something, what am I to say that he didn't call you to do that? As long as it's not unbiblical. I mean, there are definitely times where I can go like, he called you to do that?
You sure?
Because my Bible says, that's not what my Bible says, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if that's what God called him to do, then that's great. And that's fine. And praise God for him. And there's been a lot of kind of pioneers in our filmmaking space that have laid, the pavement and paved the way for us as filmmakers to get there. But for me, for Dallas, for my business partner Chris, and for various other leaders in The Chosen, that was our goal, is we're making something that is as good, if not better, right? Yeah. And that's been the goal. And again, it is just funny within the faith film space that's okay, because I think if you take any other believer in the business world, right? Yeah. It's kind of like it's like a home builder going, God called me to be a home builder. I'm going to make homes because God called me to, but I'm not going to be very good at it. They're going to be crappy homes. They're going to fall apart. They're going to be poorly made, versus no, he's going to make the best home that he can. Right. And then he just happens to be a believer, right?
Well, that is his witness. His witness is his work.
Right. And so, and so I think that's been the big thing in the film world, where it's like, oh, well, God called me to do this and all that. And I'm like, oh, well, have you made movies before? They're like, no. And I'm like, well, then you probably should do that. Well, no, God called me to do it. I'm like, well, God didn't call you to make crap, right? My Bible says do all things in excellence. My Bible says that when God built the temple in the Old Testament, that he knew it was going to be destroyed. But what did he do? He said, go over there to Lebanon, go over there and get the best craftsmen that you can find. And he knew all along it was going to be destroyed, but he said, my house is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I can almost guarantee you, and obviously I don't know this for a fact, obviously, but I assume that everybody that built that temple were not believers either.
Yeah.
Right? He just said, go get the best craftsmen.
Wow.
And that's what he did. And so even on The Chosen, we say this all the time, I bet less than half of our cast and crew are actual believers.
Wow.
We just find the best people for the job. And obviously those people are being impacted and we see those impacts on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, an artist just wants to make good art.
Yes.
So we see that a lot too. And we get people now that we're rolling into these later seasons, we have artists coming to us going, hey, I just want to work on this show. Not only is it a good show that I think is pretty cool and it looks good, but we also hear that you treat people a little bit differently over there than what I'm used to in Hollywood. And so that's been a big thing for us too, is to really to treat people differently, to love on them and care on them. And obviously we get people from all walks of life on our show. And that's not my place to do that, right? But it is my place to just love on them, because that's what the Bible says, just to love on them. We don't shy away from the scripture. We don't not talk about it. But at the same time, that it's kind of like, it's that old saying of you don't clean the fish before you catch it, right? You don't do that. No. And so it's just like, just love on them and let God do the work and you be the witness and do what you're called to do as a believer. And then obviously we have an environment of work as well. Yeah. And so got to pay our bills. We got to do those things. And so that's really kind of been one of the big focuses for us as a company. And then obviously The Chosen as well. So.
Man, the Holy Spirit's on this, because you answering so many of my questions.
All right, man, it's been good. We'll see you later. Exactly. Go to faithustle.com and do your thing. So.
See you later. No, what I love what you said, it made me think of David, of how, he was summoned by Saul. He wouldn't have been summoned by Saul if he wasn't excellent in his craft of musicianship. Like, if he was like, he's got a great heart. He knows 2 chords. Like he's okay.
Yeah.
His voice is decent. But like he's the best what we got, but his heart's good. It's like he was like skillful.
Right.
And that's what drew him to be in front of the king. And then the spirit that he had and his ability to play skillfully, was able to alleviate that oppression that was on Saul. But if he wasn't skillful, he wouldn't have even been in the room. And scripture talks about like your gift will make room for you, right, and put you in the presence of kings. And it's like, I do think, especially when it comes to films and entertainment, I've seen a lot of scripts. I've seen a lot of work where it's like we have to have a desire for both, because I think, and maybe I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, that maybe we have this complex of like, if I go after the craftsmanship or the skill of it, that I'm going to get caught up in the world of that. Rather than being like...
Then God didn't call you to do it. I mean, because if God called you to do something, then he will equip you. But at the same time, faith without works is dead.
Yes.
Period. So have all the faith that you want, that God called me to be a musician, right? Like David, for example, like maybe he did say like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be a musician. But most likely David sat there out in the field with his sheep and doing the things while he was fighting lions and fighting bears and doing all those things, because he was also pretty awesome in those things too, right? But he had practice in those things. So most likely he was sitting around practicing and listening to the Lord, and the Lord was going, get better. I'm preparing you for something that's going to be huge. And yes, I know you're sitting in a field right now, but again, faith without works is dead. Get out there and do the work. If God called you to do it, he also did not call you to be lazy. He did not call you to sit around and just go, well, God said I'm going to be a filmmaker. God said that I'm going to be a home builder. God said that I'm going to do those things. Versus go become the best freaking home builder that you can be, and then go out and become those things and be that example and love on people and show them that there is a way to, because it's also one of those things, it's very hard to be a blessing if you're not blessed. blessed, right? And so as an artist, and it's something that we focus on a lot, is pouring into that younger generation and it kind of going, okay, here's some of the pitfalls that we all ran into and that you may run into. But one of the biggest things, and we say this all the time because we have interns and we do camps and we do all kinds of things, is go get better at your craft. Don't sit around and think that just because God called you to do this, which, and he may or may not have, because you just made a good point.
Yeah.
Because we see this all the time that, we'll get interns or something and all of a sudden they see the grind that is filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
The crazy hours that we work, the time being away, being out in the elements, all these things. And I get some of these interns are like, maybe I wasn't called to do this. Like
this look good on Instagram.
This is hard, because there's just this small sliver of what we do that the public sees, the red carpets and the premieres and all these different things. And that's all great and that's fine and it's fun, but that is such a very, very small piece of it.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're working towards, then most likely this is not what you're called to do.
Yeah.
And so you really better be careful and make sure that you're really listening to God in this, because this industry is hard. Like it will eat you up and spit you out, right? We all hear stories all the time about broken families and broken marriages and all these things. And so if that will happen to anybody, then you pull the believers out of that. And it is a very, very small group of us doing this. And so you better know that you're called. And I say this to kids all the time, like, you better know that you know that you know.
Right.
And so in learning that craft may be part of it too, because you may start learning that craft and you're like, this really isn't that fun to me. I like that glitzy, glamoury. I love to see
carpet,
it and be on set and see the actors and do all these things. But do you like going and getting coffee? Do you like picking up trash?
Yeah.
Do you like standing in the middle of the road, stopping traffic because we got to do something? Do you like those kinds of things?
Right.
Because those are the things that actually get the film made or the
Getting
TV show
permits,
made.
all that.
All the things.
That's so good. It makes me think of, because I can hear someone saying right now, okay, so like, what's my first step to that? And to me, exactly what you said of like getting experience. I think part of it is like, you have to get exposure and to excellence and exposure to it, because like you said, you might get there, you're like, oh man, this is more than what I signed up for. But part of it is like, I think biblically speaking, like David killed Goliath, right? There were other giants. People who hung around David also killed giants. I think there is something of like, if no one's in my town is doing it, like find wherever they're doing it and they're doing it at the highest level and be around them, because that will raise the standard. Because excellence is not hard to notice. You can see, right. With a plain eye. But you get around it and then you get that experience. Like for me, I was so grateful for my time. I talk about it often. I have a mentor. His name's Dan Cobb. Shout out to Dan Cobb. He gave me my first shot in advertising. I was just freelancing and didn't even finish college, but he saw something in me. He had worked on a lot of the promotion stuff of Passion of the Christ back in the day, but like he had the Chick-fil-A account for a long time, had a bunch of other different stuff they were doing, and he allowed me just to like explore it. And I got to see how they were doing. And I also saw the brutal industry of advertising and the ups and downs of it, and how like they could critique the mess out of your work. And if you don't got the stomach for it, you'll be like, oh man, like I thought this was good. Like all this difference, you can get offended very easily, but they would tell, no, we're not critiquing you, we're critiquing the work. And so like that raised my standard of like even doing the show, like, and we're still growing. We're going to get better equipment, all the different stuff, but like, I can't do anything like to a lower standard. Right. Like my lens has changed, my perspective has changed. And so I do think for a next step for someone is like, okay, you're saying this, what does that mean? I think part of it, you got to get in a room with people who are actually doing it well. I want you to walk through, because I think it's incredible of the discipline, because you literally went from 10,000 to 100,000 in how many months? 8 months.
8 months.
I'd love to hear one, because I think, again, and we talk about influence a lot here. I do think some people, they seek influence probably for more vanity purposes, but there are business actual like, success stories that come from it of like, hey, like growing your account and building your platform, your personal brand does lead to business. I'd love for you to talk about your journey of like what started that growth, what prompted it, of building your personal brand, and then what's it been doing for your actual business.
Yeah, I think the biggest switch is I actually had like a coach that helped me. I paid for this coach.
Okay.
And I saw his growth online, and he was growing at a crazy rate. And so he had like this thing he was putting out for like a group of people to kind of join. And I was like, you know what, let me take the step of faith and just like, if I'm really serious about this, let me put my money behind it and sow into it. And I learned a lot from that. It was a cohort that we did like a live cohort. And the biggest thing that I learned was, I feel like the stigma around creatives is like we're very free flowing. The ideas come, like we just start creating and things like that, right? But the biggest lesson I learned in that was you have to create systems around what you're doing. If you don't have a system in place for what you're creating, then it's always going to feel like that. You're always going to feel behind. Like you're always going to feel like you're chasing something. And for me, one thing I always tell people is like, don't wait for inspiration, create it.
Ooh.
You know, like wake up every day and find time, set aside time to just create. Because I think a lot of people, the cycle that they go on is they wait for inspiration. Once they feel inspired, then they go create. But it's quite the opposite that works, is you start creating and then you start to get inspired, which fuels the action. And it's like this spiral of like, you know what, because I just took action,
right?
Then I start creating stuff and get inspired. And it's this whole loop of events. And I think not enough creatives think in that sense where it's like, I just have to put action. And from that action, I'll start to create things. Like when I get stuck on something, like if I'm designing something, I'll just start designing whatever. Yeah. I know out of that action, something's gonna come out.
Yeah.
It may be really bad at first, but I know at some point it's gonna take a turning point where it's gonna become good and I'm gonna like it. Yeah. But if I just paralyze myself to say, oh, I'm not feeling inspired today, then nothing ever is gonna get created. Yeah. And something is better than nothing, right?
100%. And movement creates momentum.
Exactly.
And I know like they recommend writers a lot of times of like, put a time in your calendar, whether it's every day, once a week, you are writing and like you're doing free flow. So you could be talking about dogs or just be like A, B, C, D, you know, whatever. And like, just keep like, don't stop the flow of it. I mean, I feel like there's so many life lessons from that of not just like, I mean, even just in business period of like, so many times it's like, I want to wait for the inspiration before I move rather than like, no, like sometimes like getting your feet going actually like creates the momentum.
100%.
And it's astonishing to me how that, it's funny. I was actually, I was with a group of entrepreneurs recently and we were helping a young company, it's a consulting company, and they're struggling to kind of get some business, and they're like, what should we be doing right now? And they're doing some free work, and they're like, and we start telling them, you should start posting your free work and whatever you're doing and start writing and making blogs, because oddly enough, people who get busy are people who have the perception that they are busy. Not the, you know, like the people who are actually like moving forward and creating movement. But like if you're wanting to get busy and wanting to get work, and you're saying all the time, hey, I'm available. I got nothing going on, guys. Hey, you know, hire me. You know, It's like, those are the folks that like find it hard to get work. But like, if you have the perception of like, even if you are not getting paid for something, but you make spec work, or you just find a church, like let's say you're a designer or a business, you're like, hey, I'll do some graphics for you real quick for free. I'll just whip it up. Like, do whatever you can do to build that momentum, because it actually draws more business. 100%. Because people think, oh man, this guy, he's moving and shit. He's probably good because people keep hiring him. Yeah. And so anyways, I didn't want to cut you off, but like I'm learning that principle more and more of how sometimes you literally have to create the momentum.
Just take the step. Just take the step forward. I forget what author said this, but there's a quote that says like, you know, when I'm writing, I wait for inspiration. Luckily, that inspiration happens every morning at 9 a.m. Oh. You know, it's like, it's already built into my schedule.
You set an appointment for inspiration.
100%. Like, you just have to put it in place. And so,
and I think that's, sorry, we have to go deeper in that.
Come on.
I think that's so important, because especially if you are creative and in whatever field it be, video or, you know, a designer or whatever, whether you're in church creative or you're doing your own thing, you're freelancing. I think, you know, and listen, we all have to know how we work, right? Like for me,
that's key.
The afternoon is where I grind. I'm like, I'm in my flow.
Yep.
And there's certain things like within maybe video production where like if I'm editing, there's certain things that are like, you know, not as creative that I can just do and not really think about too much, but more of the heavy lifting of the creative work. I find my zone and then I just stick with it. But I have to put it on the calendar. It can't just be like, oh, I'm feeling creative today, I'm going to do it. It's not going to get done.
Right.
And so that's when you're talking about systems, you're saying you're setting an appointment for yourself to find inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. And even more important, like you said, beyond the system is the discipline to put the system to work.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, you hear like these productivity gurus, all these guys like time block everything and this, whatever. But it's like, okay, time blocking is just not enough. You have to be disciplined enough to say, I've set 2 hours of editing time or whatever, creative time. I'm going to be disciplined to say I'm going to do it because nobody's over your shoulder telling you to create content.
No, not at all.
Right? Like there's nobody. And so at least at first, unless you start to get like brand deals and stuff, but at first, like you just have to be, you have to understand like what you have as far as the value you're going to put out into the world is so important that you have to just be disciplined enough to just put it out there.
Wow.
And so from that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to segment my days. So like I would do like Monday is coming up with ideas. Tuesday, I'm going to script these videos. Wednesdays, I'm going to film them. Thursdays, I'm going to edit them. Right. And have a system. And I built out this thing to where I now have a space and a place where I have all my ideas. And so what I do personally when I'm creating content is I have just a note on my phone and it's called Brain Dump. And literally as I'm walking or I'm maybe having a conversation and we're having coffee or whatever, and I get an idea, I'm just going to pull out my phone, write that idea down and then leave it there.
Brilliant.
The last thing I want is it to sit in my head because I'm taking up space for other ideas to come into my head.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take it out, release it, put it on my phone. And when I'm ready to go ideate stuff and create content, I'm then seeing, okay, was that a good idea in the moment or is it still a good idea now? And I'm kind of thinking through that process and allowing myself to just be okay with writing some crazy stuff down. But oftentimes those ideas where I just get a spark of inspiration, those lead to like bigger concepts that I can create off of. And yeah, it's been cool, man.
That's okay. So I love that. So you built these systems. I think anybody could even copy and paste that and build it in of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You started posting content, was it every day? You did like a challenge or something for yourself.
Yeah. So funny enough, which is crazy, right? So like I said, it was the end of 2023. I was under the username Church Fonts, but I kind of felt like God was just stirring in me like, hey, like you have more to offer, right? Besides just these like reposts that you're doing. And so I started off just changing. It was before a logo, just like CF. I just changed it to my face.
Yeah.
It was still under Church Fonts. Lost a couple followers there, right?
Oh, that's terrible.
No, yeah, straight up. Like nobody wants to see me, my mean mug, you know?
That's terrible.
And so I was like, all right, you know what? Like I'm not gonna get caught in the numbers. So then I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna change my name. So I changed my name to actually my name, and then I lost even more followers. And I remember like for the first day ever, I had like negative followers. And I had never experienced that since I started the account. And I was like, gosh, like this is not a good feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And so after that kind of happened for a while, I'm like, man, something needs to change, you know, like maybe I'm not doing something right. And so I had the idea, I had stopped kind of posting about fonts, kind of kept it more general. And I just told myself, like, why not just take it back to what started this and just talk about fonts, but in a different way. So I literally, and I suggest you do this. I just put a video out there saying what I was going to do before I even knew how I was going to do it. I just literally said, hey, tomorrow I'm posting 30 days straight about 30 different fonts.
Ooh.
Like I didn't even have.
Oh, it wasn't pre-planned. It was just
I
like,
did not even plan it out. I just jumped in the water like straight up because I knew if I allowed myself to analyze it, I'm gonna get.
You're not gonna do it.
I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? This is what's stopping me. I get in my head too much.
Wow.
And so I just literally turned the camera on. Didn't care about the lighting. I just turned my light on, pressed record, and I said, hey, tomorrow, and you can literally go back and see this video. It's still on my account. Tomorrow, I'm starting a series where I'm just going to post every day. I'm going to take it back to what I did before, and I'm going to post about a new font. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I had no idea where I was going to find these fonts. I'm telling you, I had no game plan, no system.
Dang.
And I just took it day by day.
Wow.
And I had never expected the growth that would come out of it. Like I posted on my story one time, like the goals that I had for this year. And this was me shooting for the moon to get to 50,000 by the end of this year. And
that end of year, your goal was 50.
Yeah. Cause I was like at 10, right? And
That's wild.
I was getting like negative followers. So I'm like, you know what, guy, like, because think about it. It took me 3 years to get to 10,000.
Wow.
So to get from 10 to 50, like, I was like, man, this is kind of a long shot.
And how consistent were you in posting from 0 to 10 in those 3 years?
Maybe like 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, kind of consistent, but sparingly a little bit.
But again, you know, it wasn't my content. It was just reposting other people's content.
Right.
And so
but
like,
when you got serious about your own content, your own creativity, you started out 30 days and then in 8 months, 10 to 100.
10 to 100. And in that 30 days is where I saw like a crazy amount of growth. I think that 30 days got me to like 60 or 70,000.
Jeez.
And I had like brands reaching out to me to like collaborate with, and it was wild. Like I would have never ever guessed that I would get into a space where like people are reaching out to collaborate, and like these are like brands that I've looked up to, you know, and it was just crazy. I'm like, God, this is all you, because I would have never guessed that this would have happened. And so it's been an incredible journey, and like obviously I've been posting since then, so it's cool to see the audience still there, people still interacting, and I've kind of broadened like the topics I talk about. I'm still in like design and creativity, but my heart has always been to encourage creatives. Like
I feel that, yeah.
Being a creative, as vulnerable as it can be, kind of the mindset that it takes to continue. I mean, we all deal with imposter syndrome. That's a huge thing.
Oh yeah. And
then too, like I said, just being disciplined to understand, like, we have to treat this like any other thing that we want to get good at, right? If we went to the gym whenever we felt like it, we wouldn't see much progress.
No, not at all.
Because I never feel like going to the gym.
I feel that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
but you have to. You showing up is the win.
Straight up.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, you just have to show up and just do what you can in that moment, and then do that the next day.
Wow.
And it all just compounds. I'm telling you, like, a lot of people think there's a secret or there's a sauce or whatever, but it's literally, as cliche as it sounds, it is consistency.
Wow. It's funny you say that. And I want to transition to talking on the business side, how it's helped your growth. Ladarius, who was on the show, he said, he had a statement. He said, you have to commit before you start. And for him, he committed every Saturday, like 100 Saturdays of posting. It's like, whatever it is, like, you're not even focused. Like, obviously it's good to have a goal of like a number, but like, you're more committed to the discipline of your regimen, because that's going to lead the forward progress, period. And whether it is you becoming a better designer or trying to grow your personal brand, it's funny how I think sometimes we look at people who do go viral or people who whatever hit it big, whatever, and we think it was a flash in the pan moment. Typically, it's discipline when it meets opportunity.
Come on.
And it's like, and part of, if you're a creative, I think some parts that can be tough, because you're wanting the moment, like, oh, this is the thing that's gonna like shoot it up, and it's like, well, probably not. Like, songwriters always say, like, you got to make like 1,000 bad songs before you write one good one. 100%. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to admit when we have 1,000 bad songs. and like, for me with this, like, I know the episodes are gonna get better. We're gonna edit it better. We're gonna add tons more animations. The team's gonna expand as the years come. This content that we're doing right now is not the best that it will be. It's the best that it is now. It's not the best that it will be. But if I wait until that moment to start, I won't see any progress. We're not sitting here in this studio, none of it. And so part of it is like, I have to commit before I start. I have to commit to the forward progress of like, hey, give me a year and we're gonna be slaying it.
I've heard somebody say it this way. It's like, right now I'm just working on my bank of bingeable content. It's like, when I do, go viral or whatever, I'm gonna have a bank of content that people are gonna go just watch.
Oh, he's been doing this for a minute.
100%, right? Because imagine if somebody went viral with their first video, and it's like, okay, well, how do I get more of this guy?
It's a lot to keep up with. Like, it's a lot of pressure to, like, someone's like, when you go too big on a first date, then you set the expectation of like every date's gonna be like, come on, like 5-star restaurants and all that different stuff. You know what I mean? And so I think part of it is like, and so much of it is a reputation of just showing up, of like how much that is a big deal, of you keeping your word. Like you said, I'm doing it for 30 days. You showed up in 30 days. You know, I tell people in podcasting all the time, like, whatever your regimen is, I typically, you know, say either weekly or biweekly. Just show up when you say you're going to show up.
Yeah.
Because the worst is, how can you expect someone to show up for you when you won't consistently show up for them? Of like, yeah, hey, I know I only post once a month or when I feel like it, but please listen. It's like, no, I got a life.
Yeah.
But if you're pulling up on Wednesday at 8 a.m., guess what? I'm gonna pull up with you. You know what I mean? And so I think that's so awesome.
Because what happens is it lends you to it puts you in a position to compromise. When you're going at such a rapid pace and things start to get out of control, to make the machine continue to go pushes you to potentially compromise. And you don't want to be in that position. You want to make sure that what you do every day, you're doing for the right reason, for the right cause. We had a little slogan that we used that said we wanted to consistently meet the expectation that drives the passion. So if you go to Florida and you get a half gallon of butter pecan or homemade vanilla, it better taste
the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of cross comparisons and taste tests just to make sure that what we were doing consistently, because the passion's what kept us going, and still to this day keeps us going.
Wow.
Even as a retired person,
I
want to buy it and take it home, and I still want it to taste exactly what my expectation is. So
100%. And yeah, we consistency of experience. I mean, again, that's what builds great brands. Of like, hey, you go into a Chick-fil-A, you go in to buy Bluebell ice cream, it's going to taste the exact same, the same formula, and you know, hopefully with the same experience that you're going to get. But that I don't think that doesn't come overnight. That's a lot of testing and perfecting, and I guess, you know, and this was not in my notes. What in your experience, you know, again, growing with the company, because you mentioned when you take your time and grow at a steady pace, it allows you to, you know, maybe not take opportunities that, you know, would decimate it, but you can be more wiser. Do you remember a time when there was maybe a decision that the company were like, yeah, we could do that, we could expand really fast, but we're not going to do that, and you kind of saw almost like the fruit of that culture point of, hey, we're going to go steady?
Right. No, I mean, especially in those early days when we were only, again, in the markets that I mentioned, you know, the Dallas-Fort Worth, people were bootlegging the product in the markets. They would come down. Oh, yeah. They were, you know, bringing a freezer on the back of a pickup truck, going in and looking for the $1.99 special and buying out the store, you know, and taking it back. And you'd think, man, why can't we just go on and go there? But at the same time, and I think you said it beautifully, is your personnel properly trained? Do they understand, again, the culture? Will they keep that pace at the same level? And it's easy to want to run to that. There's, you know, today we're only in 23 states.
Really?
We still have not all half. Now a couple of them, it'd take a little bit of effort to get the truck to Hawaii.
Oh, really?
I mean, we don't go to Hawaii.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I'm saying it would be a hard drive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's back to the cents by the inch and making sure we have a unique way of doing it. We make the product ourselves and we store it, put it on our own trucks, take it to our own branches, and then go to the store with our own personnel.
Oh, wow. So there's no middleman.
There's no middleman, and we do it because of the nature of the product. We want to make sure, again, that it's in the condition that it should be when you get it to the house. And so with that, we don't go through warehouses. That would be a lot easier. I mean, we could do that tomorrow and be in the entire country. But we want to make sure when you try Bluebell for the first time, or you've been eating it all your life, that it's what you expect, because it takes you somewhere. It takes you to grandma's house. It takes you to a memory of some kind, a celebration of some kind. And so we take that real serious, and we don't want to jeopardize it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first experience with Bluebell was before I moved here. This is probably 6 years ago. And a family that I'm still very close with, we do family dinners together. I'm like kind of an adopted member of their family, their bonus son, they call it. And we just do life together and all this different stuff. And I remember they were the first ones that exposed me to Blue, because we didn't have it up north. You know, I didn't have it in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and in Michigan we didn't have it. We had other brands. So I came down here and they're like, "Oh, you got to have Bluebell." And I remember I went to their church. The pastor's talking about Bluebell and and they're giving out Bluebell ice cream, little ones of them for on Sunday morning, as like a summer treat.
Now that'll preach.
Yeah.
That'll preach.
That's a great message. I get saved if you offer that. And I was like, man, what's the hype of this? And then I tried. I'm like, oh, got it. Makes sense. And it does remind you of when I was a kid and going down to the street to the local kind of store, and it's that homemade kind of feel. And I mean, I do think great brands that are built well, they take you to those places and they hold core. I mean, it's the same reason why there's, I don't know if you remember the study that happened a long time ago of Coke and Pepsi, and people, they took the labels off, and then it seemed like more people actually like Pepsi with the label off, and then they put the label back on. They're like, you actually like Pepsi? But they're like, no, there's no way. I'm a Coke guy, when I was young, and so, like, it literally like did something in their brain of like it reminding them of those memories. That's what a great brand can do. And so, I mean, I've seen the impact of it, and it's impacted me.
That's good.
That's so awesome to jump into this mindset that you're talking about. You're working with these 8-figure, 9-figure CEOs, executives, and again, in so many ways, they follow that path, right? That's maybe they hop from one job to another, but maybe they're in the same industry field. They're there, and you mentioned that you help people with the intersection of what they do and their meaning, their life's meaning. What are you finding that they're even at that level, what they struggle with?
The exact same thing that you struggle with.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
Wow.
And potentially the stakes are higher. Potentially the reward is greater and the loss is greater.
Right.
But what they struggle with, what they see, the reason I am employed is the same as it is when I talk to a 21-year-old, a 41-year-old, or a 61-year-old.
Yeah.
Like a 21-year-old says, where do I belong? A 41-year-old says, I have to belong here. And a 61-year-old says, do I still belong?
Oh. Hold on, say that again.
You know what I'm saying?
A 21-year-old asks,
where do I belong?
Where do I belong? A 41-year-old says, I belong here. And a 61 says, do I still belong?
Correct.
Dang.
We're all asking the same questions. Right?
Yeah.
At 21, let's say we're 21, single and unmarried.
Yep.
Is anyone going to love me? At 41, been married 15 years. Do they really love me? At 61, where are the people that love me?
Wow.
And we can frame it on any of those scenarios and across the thing. And so I feel very fortunate that I get the opportunity to be in the room with folks who are making decisions, who have, a CEO of an 8-figure business. They're doing 75 million in revenue. They've got 350 staff. Each of those have 4 people in their family. That's roughly 1,200 people. So every time I sit down with the CEO, I think I'm talking to 1,200 people. That's sort of how I view it when I sit down, right? As the decisions you make and the implication of that runs down, it's affecting 1,200 individuals with every decision that you make. Therefore, I'm really curious about your relationship with your spouse. Therefore, I'm really curious about one of the things that we track with our CEOs. We have our Beyond Success systems, we call it. And so one of the things we track annually is not just annual revenue, but we track annual hours worked. And it's a target we set every year, every CEO we work with. And they always question me, like, well, what do you mean by that? I don't know how many hours I work. And I go, that's the problem. I want to know how many hours do you plan on working next year?
Wow.
Because what gets measured gets accomplished.
Yes.
So I want to measure that. And how many hours do you plan on spending with your children? How many hours do you spend on spending with your husband or your wife? How many hours do you plan on giving back? How many hours do you? Because if we don't know now, we're for sure not going to do it.
Wow.
And so I think in any of those scenarios, the questions they're asking are, sure, maybe the stakes feel higher, but do I belong? Do people love me? Does it really matter? Are they only work here because they get a paycheck? How do they? I mean, everything that we think we're asking, they're asking also. And I think to me, that's why there is this incredible opportunity, I think, for all ages and in many professions to be able to sort of take this idea of how was I made and designed and how do I show up in those places? And I could be a marketing director, or I could be a CEO, or I could be on the operations staff. I could be in finance. I could make the career itself, the title itself, I'm not saying is irrelevant, like it doesn't carry weight, but I'm saying it's irrelevant in the sense that it's going to be the determining factor of my worth and my value.
Yeah.
That just to me, that just feels like we are trying so hard to, do I belong?
Yeah.
I really belong.
Yeah.
Where do I belong in any of those things? And so if we go to any event, we go to conferences, you go to them, I go to them. We meet someone the first time. Hey, I'm Rocky. Hey, I'm Wakenda. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
What do you do?
The very next question in my mouth is, what do you do? And then we all say a professional title like we care. And we don't.
Yeah.
We don't care. We don't care. At the root of it, we don't care. What we're hoping is, well, I think what we're really trying to say, and I'm not saying this is good or bad or right or wrong, I think it would be a lot more honest if we would just say, hey, are you or are you not valuable to me?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're asking.
Yeah, you're just trying to
Even if you're curious and you're listening and you're like, Rocky, I disagree with you wholeheartedly because I'm very curious about what you do professionally. I know you are, because you want to know if I'm going to sell you something or if you can sell something to me.
Yeah.
That's why you're asking me.
Or if you're valuable enough, do you know somebody that I want to know?
That's right. That's right.
Are you going to bring anything to the table?
And I'm not saying I do it differently, okay? I'm not saying I'm not also interested in that.
Yeah.
And what if we had a language that we could speak? Mm-hmm. Right? I'm not sure if we talked about this earlier, but oftentimes, and I think this is for all of us. How many times in your life have you felt misunderstood? Right? I would ask you to ask yourself, how many times in your life have you felt misunderstood? Now, second part of the question. If we show of hands, yes, that's me. I felt misunderstood. Were you misunderstood because the person that you were talking to didn't have the ability to understand you? Or were you not communicating who you were in a way that was understandable? And oftentimes we like to pass the blame to the other party and say, well, I showed up as me. It's not my fault you don't understand me. When in fact, you've yet to be communicating to me in a way that is understandable. And so that to me is a direct through line to why it's valuable to know ourselves, why it's valuable to pursue who we are and what that means. And as we do that, we get to see, know, and understand, I believe, God more clearly. If we were to take 500 people in a room versus 50,000 people in a room, 50,000 people gives me a greater view of the face of God than 500. Because it's just another piece of who he is represented in one of us.
That's good. It makes me think of Peter and his journey with Jesus. I'm a huge fan of Peter and his development. Because I love how Scripture leaves in the messiness, right, and all the intricacies of it.
I do too. And so my question for you is: so why do you keep trying to take the messiness out of yours?
Woo! It's just a little sidebar.
Go ahead.
A little sidebar. That's a fact. Let's go there. 2 seconds. Even Old Testament, God, when he's telling, hey, Moses, I want you to pen this. Hey, I want you to pen this. They don't leave out even kings. They don't leave out their mistakes.
He sat with the woman at the well and he didn't hold a picket sign and tell her that she was an idiot. He sat down and said, yeah, let's have a sandwich. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, even, again, if you go to Old Testament, Noah, hey, builds an ark, he's faithful for 100 years. Then messes it up after. It's still recorded. It's like, it's not a...
You have a choice every day to take your past and your pain and use it as a mechanism to protect yourself and hide, or to propel yourself into your purpose.
That's so good.
Me too. That's not me trying to, expound on something that I'm not trying to live myself. Every day I have a choice to take my past and my pain and use it as a mechanism to protect myself so that you can't get me like they did. Or I use it as a mechanism to propel myself in the direction of what my purpose is. And I believe we have that active choice. Does it take help? Yep. Do you need a coach? Probably. You need a friend? Go to therapy? Bet you do. There's a lot of things you need. Need a pastor in your life? Probably.
Yeah.
But with all of those things, now all of a sudden, what do we just build? Imagine that. We got honest about our life and where we've been, and all of a sudden a community popped up. That's interesting. Now my past gets to use as a mechanism to propel me, because there's other people who recognize that I may in fact be a human like them. And instead of saying, what do you do? Maybe we start asking, what did you do? Oh, so great to meet you. What did you do? Now, would we ever really ask that? You got to be a little bit crazy to do that. But if you did, it'd be really interesting what it is that we found out. And I bet you'd have more in common with a person next to you that you think that you don't, if you asked more about what they did and less about what they can do for you.
It's funny. So I was just at a conference. I love where we're going. I'm off my notes, and I love it. I love it. I was just at a conference called SALT. Shout out to SALT. And we were there was a guest speaker. I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but it was Brad Montague, I want to say. Okay. He produced the Kid President, that series, if you remember way back when. I think it was like in 2007, 2008. And he's done a lot of incredible things. He does a lot of work with kids and stuff, and he does coaching and whatnot. And he said he started doing something called Failabrations. And so he'll get like a huge group of executives, professionals. He'll get them on a stage and say, hey, I want you to say like your greatest failure. And so they say their greatest failure and or you know, a time you failed, and everybody just celebrates, gets standing ovation. And, you know, they got streamers and all this, you know, he's an out there character. But his whole thing is like, we never celebrate those moments, but those are the moments that, one, we are not ourselves without that. And that's how, like you said, we can relate to others. That's how we can all be human of like, yeah, I messed up. Yeah, I should have did this, but I did this instead. And I think it's, he talked about how it can change our viewpoint of how we view us in our lives and the sum of our lives, that we're not just the sum of the good things we do, but of all the things that, you know, it's all encompassing. And so I love that. Going back to Peter real quick, because I want to tie it to what you said earlier. What I love about Peter's journey and what Jesus was trying to do with Peter was he was trying to tell him, listen, you keep trying to go back to fishing. Like if you notice his journey, every time like something goes hard, goes back to fishing. Goes back to fishing. And he's like, listen, there's more in you than just fishing. And if I can get you to understand that your calling card or your, hey, my name is Peter the fisherman, it's you're a fisher of men. There's more in you than just this one profession, this one occupation, this one trade. And it's funny, like God always directs these podcast episodes. I don't know who's listening. I think this is for someone who feels like not even this, you can't reinvent yourself from a standpoint of like, oh, like I can pick another profession or whatnot. That almost it feels like illegal or just like it feels against you. But it's like I think this is a good step for you to think, well, why is that I feel that way? And I do believe God cares more about not just the things you do, but the person that you do become. And so I love this perspective, man. This is it's so rich.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's where we allow ourselves to hold two truths together that we've been historically told don't belong together. There's an immense amount of freedom. And I think we get pictures of this in Scripture constantly, right? The way think about every cliche way God's ever been described. He's the lion and the lamb, right? Well, that doesn't make any sense,
right?
Okay, which one is he though? Like, is he the lion or the lamb? Because like those two things are not even remotely the same.
Yes.
Right. Is he good? Yes. Is he safe? Shout out Narnia. No. He's not safe, but he is good. Oh, interesting. What do you mean though? Like, I don't know. It's a little bit of edge there, right? And we could go through and we could go back and forth with every Christian journal we've ever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's got a quote on it.
Yeah.
Why is that though? Why is it? Is it because God is so much bigger than our even human brain has the ability to sort of wrap our head around, that we were given two things so we can see the fullness of God? Maybe. Are we given two things that don't belong together to remind us that when we try to sort of squeeze down, God is only this, and then we say we are only this? It's our kind of it's God's way of going like, hey, just take a step back for a second. Maybe. I also think it's because in life, almost always two things are true at the same time.
Yeah.
But as humans, we like to be right. And we don't want to be wrong.
Yep.
And we want to be right because being right makes us feel safe. But being right isn't always good. And so I think there's this really unique space. I would, if I could encourage anyone listening at regard 21, 41, 61, where you feel the highest amount of tension in your life right now, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is on the opposite end of that tension? And is that true also? Life is really hard. Life is hard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, it is.
And, not but. Get rid of that word.
Yeah. I learned that from Tim Ross.
Like,
yeah, not
and.
but, and.
And life is beautiful.
Yeah.
Life is absolutely can beat you down and absolutely freeing.
Yeah.
Your job right now is miserable and is teaching you exactly what you need for your next one.
Yeah.
And your life is going amazing right now, and you are hitting every goal for 2024 you have had, and something negative or bad or detrimental can occur, and the goodness can stay.
Yeah.
But I think there's something really beautiful about our capacity to allow these two truths to be true at the same time, because typically inside that space is where we find the most freedom.
Man, that's so good. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Faith Hustle podcast. We hope you were encouraged, inspired, and feel equipped to walk out your faith hustle. If you want to come on this journey with us in growing in our business and faith, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on audio platforms like Apple or Spotify or YouTube. We would love to take this journey with you, and we can't wait to see what God does in your business. We look forward to seeing you soon.